Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morowski, and I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey. Really glad I get the opportunity today to talk to you a little bit about Parker Dewey micro-internships and how you can take the initiative to create your own opportunity. For those who haven't already done it, we do have a poll in the chat. Would just love for you to let us know which of those challenges are resonating with you so I can highlight exactly how micro-internships can help during the presentation. So with that, as you're filling out the poll, if you're going, man, I resonate with a lot of these, I'm feeling these challenges, want to make sure you know that you are not alone. These are challenges we see felt by a lot of students and recent graduates who are trying to launch their career. So whether you're not sure what you want to do next and you're just looking to explore, that looks to be a good portion of you today, about half of you, or you're struggling with a busy schedule. You don't have a lot of time. Maybe you're looking for opportunities and the only ones you're seeing are unpaid, and that's just not realistically going to work with your budget. Or maybe you're just struggling to get that first experience. And that seems to be the majority of you in the room today. It looks like almost all of you have said that is the case. Micro internships can be a really nice, accessible way to address those challenges. So, what exactly are these micro internships that help you with all these things? They are short-term paid professional projects. So, delving into that definition and those elements just a little bit more, when we say short-term, we mean it. These projects are always focused on a specific deliverable or set of deliverables. And what that means is there's something that you, the micro intern, are completing and then handing off, typically virtually. Over 90% of these are remote. So you're completing them and handing them off to the company that has posted the opportunity. It could be something like create an email marketing campaign, analyze this data and make a list of insights, do research on this topic and compile your findings. But when you're done with the micro internship project, you're done with the micro internship. So that means typically 10 to 40 hours in total. And because they're project-based and typically remote, how it works is you'll connect with the professional at the company, you'll get the details and the context, and then as long as you hit the deadline, when you work on the assignment, typically has a lot of flexibility. So if your brain is humming at 3 a.m., that's when you do good work. You can work on a micro internship during that time. Every single experience on the Parker Dewey platform is also paid because we know a lot of you can't afford to spend your time on something unless it is paid. That's more than half of you in the room today, according to the poll, and that makes sense. It also makes sense that you get paid since these are real projects. So you will be able to see when you look for opportunities what that pay is before even applying. They're always using professional skills, and what we mean by that are skills or capabilities that you are building on as a student or recent graduate of a higher education institution. So while there's nothing wrong with walking dogs or painting fences or things like that, they're just not the types of opportunities you'll find on the platform. And we do see opportunities from all different types of industries, departments, parts of the country. But today's webinar is really focused on if you're interested in the model, if you're going, yeah, paid professional experience that works with my schedule, that's what I'm looking for. But you're logging on and you're not seeing opportunities that are related to your field of interest or with a specific company, whatever it may be. Today's webinar is going to be about how you can take the initiative to maybe create some opportunities in those areas. So hopefully it was really clear when I was talking about what micro internships are, what some of the benefits are for all of you, but just in case it wasn't, one is accessibility. As long as you have a reliable Wi-Fi connection, you can do a micro internship from anywhere. It's also real experience that you get to add to your resume and LinkedIn. Now, all micro interns, regardless of what company you work with, all micro interns are independent contractors or consultants of Parker Dewey. So when you add this to your resume or your LinkedIn, that's how you'll add it with Parker Dewey as the employer, but it's real experience that you get to add. That flexibility is key for a lot of students with busy schedules. You are still connecting with a professional at the company, so you're expanding your network and connections. It's a nice, efficient way to explore careers and companies without having to commit an entire semester. And many companies are using micro-internships intentionally as a way to audition talent for longer-term roles. In fact, that's really its intent for companies to use this as a recruiting tool and use that project to decide, would this person be a good fit for our longer-term role, whether that's a traditional internship or maybe a full-time job. So while it's not guaranteed, if you do a great job on your micro-internship, there might be a longer-term offer on the other side. And I mentioned it before, but highlighting again because we know it's important. Every single Parker Dewey micro internship is paid. And we often get some questions about who can do micro internships. So I want to make sure I quickly cover that criteria. You do need to be at least 18. Because you're an independent consultant or contractor, we just need that age qualifier to make things simple for getting you paid. This is open to students or recent graduates. I often get questions about the cutoff for recent graduates, and there is no official cutoff. You're welcome to use Parker Dewey for as long as it's helpful. But if you graduated a long time ago, you're working full time, you're not really looking for another opportunity, or if you are not highlighting in your profile that you're looking to make a switch, you may have a hard time getting selected on Parker Dewey because, again, those companies are typically trying to use these projects as a pathway to something longer term. So as long as you're trying to figure out your next step or you're making a switch and you make that clear in your personal statement, you're welcome to use it again, as long as it benefits you. I often get questions about international students, and it's going to vary a little bit from school to school because international students do need to have work authorization. We've seen some be able to make it work through CPT, others have done pre-completion OPT, but for international students, if you're interested in micro-internships, your first step is going to be connect with International Student Services at your institution. Since every school has their own requirements and process, they'll be able to let you know what your eligibility is. Because micro interns are also independent contractors, these are open to undocumented students as long as you have a valid ITIN number. And some of you can even do micro internships and get paid. That's always the case. You're always getting paid. But the some of you part is you might get paid by a third party that makes it free for the company to engage you. You're getting paid just like you normally would, but you get to say to companies you're reaching out to, hey, you can engage me in this project. I get paid and it's not going to cost you anything. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those programs here in a minute. But first, I want to catch up on the chat. I see a question, is there an upper age limit for returning students? There is not. As long as you are trying to figure out the next step of your career and you are associated with a US-based higher education institution or one of our partner boot camps, and associated could be currently enrolled or you've graduated from, you're welcome to use it regardless of age other than having to be at least 18. And I see someone else asking, how many times can you use a program? So depending on what you're asking, if you're asking, can you do multiple micro internships? For sure. Apply for any and all projects that interest you. You're welcome to do as many as you get selected for, as long as you have enough time in your schedule to complete all of them. If you get selected for a project and you feel like you're kind of at bandwidth, you don't want to take on more at that time, there is the ability to retract other applications. But it usually does take a few applications to get selected, so don't hesitate to apply for multiple. If you are talking about program, as in those programs that might cover the cost, it varies from program to program. Some of these programs allow you to do one, some of them allow you to do as many as you get selected for. The ones we're going to focus on today are as many as you get selected for, but depending on your institution, there might also be some school-specific programs that you can do one funded by your school. But micro internships in general, as many as you like and get selected for. I see a question, what happens if the company is not happy with your finished product? This is a great question. So first of all, if you get selected, chances are you're prepared to do a good job because over 97% of the time, micro interns who get selected are either meeting or exceeding expectations. So the fact that they've reviewed your profile and your application and they've picked you means there's a good shot you're ready to take this on and nail it. But if for some reason you put in your best effort on the project and the company isn't happy, as long as you genuinely put in your best effort, chances are you will be paid. Now, if you did not put in your best effort, and there's really clear evidence of that, there will be a conversation, and sometimes life things just happen. Like we had a student who got sick with COVID. They had done some of it, they hadn't completed all of it, and they were like, I'm sorry, I'm behind on classes. I just don't think I can finish it. So we collaborated with the employer and we figured out, what percentage is done. Let's get them paid based on the percentage that has been completed. So the short response is put in your best effort, and typically it's not going to be a problem, but if there is an issue, reach out to Parker Dewey and we'll help you figure it out. I'm loving the activity in the chat. Please feel free to keep those things going. But rolling along, want to let you know what to expect for the rest of this presentation. As mentioned, there are some programs that give you all just a little bit extra cherry on top when you're reaching out to employers. So we're going to review those programs and make sure everyone understands which ones they are eligible for, if any. If you're not eligible for any, it is not a problem at all. We just like to know if folks are. Then we're going to talk about how to reach out to companies of interest. That's really the creating your own opportunities part. And then after that, when those opportunities that you've reached out about are posted, we're going to give just a very high level of how to go about making sure you're taking the next steps and starting on those projects. So that's applying for the resulting opportunities. So with that, some of you may have noticed that I have opened a poll, and that poll is really about eligibility for some of these programs we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to do a high-level overview. If you qualify for any of these programs, please make sure you indicate it in the poll. We will not be spending time on programs where nobody in the room qualifies. And folks who are watching this later, the information is still in the slides. We just won't be spending time on it live. So first we're going to start with the DeLuca program. This program is available to any student or recent graduate who is at an HBCU, select HSIs, and when I say select HSIs, those are Hispanic serving institutions that are members of the HSI Career Collaborative. If you are not sure if your school is a member of that organization, I've put the link in the chat. If you scroll down here, you're going to see a list of schools. If your school is on that list, please make sure you clarify that in the poll. This is also open to students from any Florida institution and any Connecticut institution. I know that's a really random group of qualifiers, but that is what the DeLuca program decided. So if you are at an HBCU or a Florida school or a Connecticut school or at one of those HSI career collaboratives, please make sure you indicate that in the chat. The next program is the Kansas program. This is specifically for undergraduate students at a public college or university in Kansas. It does need to be a public institution. It could be a community college, but it needs to be public. Then we have the Indiana Economic Development Corporation program, quite a mouthful, and why we typically just call it the IEDC program. This is open to any students or recent graduates of higher education institutions in Indiana. Could be public, could be private, either one. If you're attending college in Indiana, put that in the poll. And then that final option, none of the above. None of these qualify for you. That is a-okay, and we just want to know who's in the room. So with that, it looks like we have a couple of folks who qualify for DeLuca, and everybody else is none of the above. Love it. Let's get started. So for those of you who qualify for the DeLuca program, this program allows you to engage in projects with any company. It's not limited to companies in a specific state or anything like that. The limit is they do need to be companies that have consistent hiring goals. So companies that have paid internship programs, companies that often hire recent graduates for full-time roles. Basically, we want to make sure that the funds from these programs are being used for projects that could lead to something longer term for you. If you're not sure if the company has a paid internship program or if they're hiring for longer term roles, you can look up the company on LinkedIn and see how many employees they have. If they have more than 150, usually that's a pretty good indicator that they qualify. So what this does is it allows those companies to engage you, students that qualify, in 15-hour projects. You get paid $300 for every project you complete, and the company doesn't have to pay a thing. The DeLuca Foundation is covering the cost. Now, this is only available while funds last. So if you're one of those couple students in the room who qualifies for the DeLuca program, I encourage you, use the resources we're going to cover today to reach out today or this weekend as soon as possible to have the companies make use of these funds and engage you in a project. Now, we're not going to spend time on these other ones because we don't have folks in the room who qualify. But for the vast majority of you who said, none of these apply to me, not a fit, that is okay. All that means is that companies themselves are going to pay for the micro-internship. And they are typically happy to do that because of how Parker Dewey benefits them as a recruiting tool. If they want to reduce turnover by making more informed hiring decisions, engaging you on a project allows them to make those decisions based on real work, not just a resume, not just a conversation. And typically, doing it that way is going to reduce turnover, which is really expensive for companies. So they're happy to pay because even though they're it's cost effective. It gives them a low commitment, no risk way to assess your skills. If you finish the project and either one of you goes, this wasn't a good fit, no harm, no foul. You got experience, they got a project done. Again, way better situation than hiring for something longer term and then realizing it. Sometimes they're just getting on-demand help. Sometimes they're using it as an audition for a longer term role. Sometimes they're using it to build their brand. Some of you are getting awareness of their company in a way you wouldn't otherwise. Some of you are exactly the demographics they want to reach, but you might be extra busy. You might not be in their geographic location. You might not be aware of their company. Micro-internships are helping them reach you. So just giving that overview to say employers are typically happy to pay because this benefits them in a lot of ways. So we have covered those programs. Now we're going to talk about how you can reach out to companies of interest to encourage them to post a micro-internship for you. And here I want to highlight a statistic that came from the Strata Education Foundation. It said that 87%, and I want to make sure we all take that in, sit with that for a minute, because that's a big percentage. 87% of employers fill internship slots informally, such as through outreach from a student. So what they're saying is, yeah, that traditional, I've posted it, people apply, and then we select them. It happens, but the bulk of internships are happening because students are reaching out and seeing, is there an opportunity here? So the logic applies that the same can be true with micro-internships, that if you take the initiative and reach out, it can lead to an opportunity. But to reach out, we need two things. One is someone to reach out to. We need a contact. And the other is a message. What are we going to say when we reach out to them? So that's where we are headed next. If you are considering reaching out to someone, it could be that you already have a contact that would be a good fit. So everyone reach into your mental Rolodex. I don't even know if some of the folks in the room know what a Rolodex is. It's a thing that they used to use in businesses where you tab through the different cards and see different numbers. Just think about the people that you already know. Some good people that you might consider reaching out to is if you've recently gone to your career fair. Maybe you made a connection with a recruiter. Maybe you really liked the company. You wanted to do an internship with them, but maybe you didn't qualify yet. Maybe there's something about your personal schedule that didn't allow for it. There's just some reason you weren't able to move forward. Or maybe you are in the pipeline. You're applying for a summer internship, but you're not going to know for a while, and you want to engage with this company sooner. That recruiter may be a great person to reach out to about a micro-internship. Maybe you have a mentor or you've been able to connect with an alumni from your program or alum from your program, and they have a company or work at a company very much of interest to you. Maybe you have already created a LinkedIn account and have an existing connection. Maybe you had a guest speaker in one of your classes, or maybe you attended an event held by Career Services with an info session where you got somebody's card. These are all great examples of existing contacts you can reach out to. It's almost like I paid you, Miriam. So Miriam in the chat is going, okay, but what about students who don't know anyone? That's our next section. So you set me up really well for that. If you do not already have someone that you're thinking of, as I'm encouraging you to reflect, Then the next session of this is we're going to be talking about how to find contacts at companies of interest. We're going to use two platforms to do this. One is LinkedIn, the other is Handshake. Now, LinkedIn, open to everyone, it's free to create an account. It's a really good practice to have a LinkedIn account because a lot of professionals are on LinkedIn. So it's going to make it easier for you to see, who your friends might know, who they might be able to introduce to you, keep in touch with contacts, do things like we're going to do today. So really good idea to have a LinkedIn profile. The other tool we're going to use is Handshake. LinkedIn is really for your whole career. It's going to be a relevant tool. Handshake is more focused on early career recruiting. Even if you don't attend a Handshake school, you should be able to create an account as long as you have a .edu email address. So we're just going to show, sometimes you'll find the information you're looking for on LinkedIn, sometimes it's on Handshake. Sometimes you might have your own different career platform at your institution that has similar resources, but these are just two examples we're going to use today. Now, regardless of what platform you are using, please make sure that your profile is up to date. Most of these platforms involve creating some sort of profile, and the more polished and professional your profile looks, the more likely you are to get a response. So first, we are going to start with LinkedIn. We are going to do this live, and there are a couple of different ways that you can go about this. We're going to start by looking at different companies, and this is where you might want to start if you maybe have an industry in mind, but you don't know of a specific company. So I'm going to ask for some participation. If somebody has an industry they'd love to work in, and maybe they want to be in a specific part of the country, throw out that combo. Right, food and beverage. And do you know what size of the country you want to work in? While you are thinking about that, I'm going to show how we can use these filters to find companies in different areas. So in industry, one of the interesting things about food and beverage is there are so many things within it. Some might consider it part of hospitality. There's also supply chain management involved in that. But if we want to be in food and beverage, you can put in that. And if you see multiple options pop up like we did there, click as many as you feel are relevant. So we're going to hit a bunch of different ones here because there are lots of different options. Sorry. Food and beverage, retail, all the stuff. So you could continue to add more clearly, but we're going to go ahead and just get started with these. So I see that person wants to work in California. So we can go even further up here to locations and we can add a filter to say, okay, I want to see food and beverage companies in California. And California is a big old state, so we're going to see lots of responses. The ones at the top are often going to be those really well-known ones, Coca-Cola, Chipotle, okay, I've heard of Olipop. So there's going to be a lot of different options, but you can play with these filters until you're starting to see companies that are meeting your needs if you're not sure what specific companies you'd like to work with yet. You can even get as specific as filtering for different sizes of companies. But going with the example we've got, I'm just going to go ahead with the first company we've got here, the Coca-Cola Company. So the next step, you can go about this in a couple different ways. You can either open that company's account and you can go to people, and this is going to allow you to see some different people that work in that company. So some of these might end up being folks you want to reach out to. You could get lucky and be like, oh, early career talent recruiter. Oh, actually, we did get lucky. Senior Director of Global Early Careers. So actually, Chase would be a great person to reach out to about a micro internship because that is their focus, early to career talent. But we see that Chase is located in Atlanta, so maybe we want to see if we can find someone that's focused on early career that's located in California, since that's our goal. So the other thing we can do here is we can make a shift. Instead of looking at companies now, we're going to go and look for people. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do a search and then shift it to people. I'm going to get rid of my random keyword from just gobbledygook in there. And here's the link in the chat for people. So Now what we can do, if we're still interested in the Coca-Cola company, is we can change this company filter here to say, I want to know who works at the Coca-Cola company. We can change these filters further. We could say, I want to talk to someone who works at the Coca-Cola company who is in California. And we can get even further to say, I want to work with someone or connect with someone who is in California, works for the Coca-Cola company, and has early career in their title. And this is where sometimes you might have to play a little bit. When we search for early career, well, we already saw that Chase has early careers in his title, so he's probably going to come up. But depending on the names and titles at different companies, you might not get anything. If we don't get anything for early career, we could try recruiter. We could try talent. Often they're called talent acquisition. We could try a bunch of different things. If those still don't pull up anything, then you can change your strategy a little bit. Instead of reaching out to somebody in recruiting, you could search for titles that align with the type of role you'd like to be hired for at that company. So if you're interested, I see Miriam in the chat is interested in law. If there's a job title that resonates with you that you're going for, is your first job out of college, you could search for that title and then reach out to a professional in the role you'd like to have and see if they need any support. But we're going to start with early career. So a great example, we searched for early career and we didn't find anything in the state of California. So this time I'm going to switch it around. I'm going to search for talent. That also didn't bring up anything. So we're going to do another switch. We're going to look for recruiter. And here's where we start to see some options. Now, when we're looking at these though, LinkedIn member, that's probably not an active account. Same for that one right here. But then we look here and Chris is a field recruiter for Coca-Cola, and they're located in California. So we can click on Chris's profile. We're going to learn more here. So he coaches hiring managers, requiring best practices for hiring and interviewing. He trains and develops third-party recruiting sources to help with summer staff. So he's really helping folks get into that Coca-Cola pipeline. This is a fantastic person to reach out to. So the next step is we're actually going to do the reaching out, but we want to make sure that you have professional language that you can use confidently. So before we go to reach out, I'm going to review our resource here for reaching out, and that is our message templates. So this is a resource that I'm also putting in the chat. I'm labeling as message templates. So what we're going to do here is scroll down and you'll remember those programs. So for the couple of you that are eligible for DeLuca, you're going to click on that. Everybody else in the room today, we're going to check out this none of the above option. And you'll see that we have two different types of templates here. On the left, we have the email template. This is going to be if you already have contacts in mind. When we get to Handshake, that's more like email, so you're going to use that one. For LinkedIn, you're going to see that LinkedIn limits how many characters you can use the first time you reach out. So that's why we're copying this LinkedIn template right here. I have too many tabs open, so I'm going to close a couple as I get us back to just Chris. There we go. And I am going to hit more and I'm going to hit connect. Now, this is where if you're doing this on a phone, I would recommend going to a desktop because sometimes on the phone, it doesn't give you this opportunity to add a note. And you definitely want to add a note. Otherwise, Chris may go, well, I don't know who you are. I'm not accepting your request to connect. And if he doesn't request your accept to connect, you can't send any other communication after you've sent that. You also may notice here that you only get so many personalized invitations per month. Not encouraging you to buy LinkedIn Premium or anything like that. I mean, if you find it helpful, great, but you don't need it. I'm just encouraging you to keep that in mind so you can be selective about where you're using those invitations. Just make them count. So we're going to take what we got from our template and we're going to pop it in here. We're going to say, hello, I'm very interested in Coca-Cola Company. Make sure you personalize it. Don't just paste and go. Would you consider posting a short-term professional project for a whatever major it is? Mine was digital media student like me. And then you're giving them a link to a Parker Dewey page. And this Parker Dewey page, so you know what you're sending, is going to encourage them to get more done while connecting with great talent. They can go see an employer tutorial, they can get started, but it's really making it easy for them to understand what you're asking of them. And this has been set up, so unless you have a really long major, in which case you can probably find a way to abbreviate, it's going to come in right under that 200 character limit. And then you are going to send. Now, I'm not actually interested in a micro-internship, so I'm not going to send, but that's a great example of how you can go about doing this. So if folks want, we can do another example of how to find a contact at a specific company. Does anyone else have a dream company that they'd love to work for and they're not feeling totally confident about how to find a contact to reach out to? If so, put the dream company in the chat. Pinterest. All right. So we're going to go back to that link we put in earlier, and that's going to be the people link. So let me go ahead and just bring that up here. There's probably honestly an easier way to get it, but I usually just put in junk and then go to people, and then I get rid of everything in the URL after that question mark. So here's that link if folks want to follow along. And we are now going to go to all filters, and we're going to go to current company, and we're going to go to Pinterest. Now, before I put Pinterest in there, something else to be aware of, folks, is sometimes the company you want to work for is housed under another company. So if you're doing this and you're having trouble finding the company, or the results that are coming up just don't look quite right, you might want to search the name of your company that you're interested in, parent company, in Google, and see if anything comes up under that. Now, Pinterest will see they come up on their own, but just in case you're having trouble finding something. So we are looking at Pinterest. I don't know if you have any location restraints, but we'll just go ahead and search for Pinterest. Now, another thing you can do is this connections filter. If you just want to see people that are connected to someone that works at Pinterest, that's what these first, second, third means. So first is if you have a connection that works at Pinterest, maybe one of your friends got an internship there and you didn't know, it's going to show you that you know someone that works there. If you filter for second, that means you know that person and that person knows someone that works at Pinterest. Maybe they could make an introduction for you. And third, transparently gets a little complicated after that to facilitate, but that's how you could use that field too if you want to see. Another filter we didn't use before, but you could use is this schools filter. If you are reaching out to someone who graduated from your institution and works at your goal company, oftentimes those alumni, they have a soft spot for students from their institution. So that's another filter you can use. As is, we're just going to get started with Pinterest and early career in the title. See what we get. So no results found. Again, this is going to happen sometimes. That is okay. Let's try recruiter next. And here is where we are getting a lot of folks. So we've got a senior recruiter, a business recruiter, a senior technological recruiter. So in this case, we might want to use some of those other filters because again, there's multiple pages of results. So the person who said Pinterest, Kristen, do you mind sharing what institution you go to? We can see if there's any alumni. If I don't see a response, I'll just give an example. I'm going to guess that's Western Governors University. So I'm going to go down to the school section. Oh, no worries. And we're going to pop that in. And again, maybe there's going to be something, maybe there isn't, but this is where you play around. So we don't see any alumni. So we're going to go back to our filters and we're going to say, that wasn't the one, but we'll play around with these different options. So maybe I want to see, do I know someone who knows someone? In that case, I don't have any direct connections to Pinterest. So we're going to go back, get rid of that one. But you can keep playing until you are finding someone that seems promising. I see a question. Do we have to pick the location since most internships can be remote? Can we specify that we are looking for remote opportunities? Great question. If you know that your ultimate goal is, I want to work with this company and I want to do it from California, I would just start with that being your filter because if that's where you want to end up, even though the micro internship is remote, it's great for you to start engaging with folks at the place where you ultimately want to be. If you're like, you know what, I'm open to moving anywhere and this micro internship is remote, I don't care, leave that location filter open. you are welcome to connect with whoever seems like a good fit. So in this case, since those filters didn't bring up anything in particular, what I would recommend is just kind of scrolling through and seeing if there's anything about these different recruiters that help you stand out. So one of the things you might take into consideration is what type of role do you want to do at Pinterest? If you are interested in design, for example, I would say, okay, Bailey is probably going to be a good person to reach out to. So what you can do then is click on them, learn a little bit more about the folks. In this case, I can see I have a mutual connection, so I might remind myself who that is, see if they'd be willing to make an introduction. And if you feel good about them being someone that might be good to reach out to, that's where, again, you'll use that template. Okay, so Kristen said product management. So I think who I saw here, a program manager might be a good fit. Product management, there might be a few other things to put in there. So what we can do is put product. And maybe there's someone that works in product, or maybe there's someone that's a recruiter specifically in product. So here's an example of someone, they don't work in recruiting, but they're a lead product marketing manager. They may be able to say, oh, I need this support, or I want to fill my pipeline. I want to be able to do that. So in that case, you might consider reaching out to Jeffrey or Jesse. I don't know why I named him Jesse. Jeffrey in my head. But that's an example of how you can go about this. I see the question, should we reach out to recruiters specifically, or can you reach out to specialists? You can do either one. Some factors you'll want to take into consideration are one, the size of the company. So depending on the size and the policies of the company, it might be that recruiters are kind of the ones that get to make decisions about budget and those types of things and where we're spending our recruiting budget. In other places, the department heads might be able to get to make those decisions without having to go through the recruiters or have those conversations. So if you're really excited about one company, you might try doing it both ways. I know you only get so many things on LinkedIn per month, but that's an example of how you might be able to reach out maybe someone in your goal department and reach out to a recruiter and see which one responds to you. That's also why we're going to cover Handshake, because you're not limited in the same way in Handshake. You can reach out to multiple people, but LinkedIn has more folks using it since it's for the duration of the more career, so that's why we're showing both. And I saw someone earlier who said, I'm interested in working in pharmaceuticals, but I don't really know any companies. Yeah, you could definitely search for pharmaceutical companies and use the filters on LinkedIn. So if we go back to that search, we go to companies, we get rid of my gobbledygook, so we're starting just at the companies. You can go to all filters, you can go to industry. Again, you might play around a little bit. So it could be retail pharmacies, or it could be pharmaceutical manufacturing. And then you can play, what state do you want to be in? Do you know you want to work for a particular company size? Now, pharmaceuticals by their nature often are larger, but that's how you're going to be able to play with the different filters. Mississippi. All right. So if you wanted to be in Mississippi, MISSI, PPI. Okay. So this is going to show you specifically pharmaceutical companies in Mississippi. Once you have this, then you can go back to that contact page or the persons page. You could switch this to people. So make your list of which ones are interesting to you, and you can click on them, you can learn more, and then you'll go back to people and filter by current company associated with these companies. Oh, and then people are helping out in the chat, so that's nice to see too. All right, folks. So that's how you can use LinkedIn. If there are any other questions about LinkedIn, please feel free to put those in the chat. I can always hop backward, but I do want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on Handshake as well. So Handshake, very similar in a lot of ways. Again, if you don't already have a Handshake account, you should be able to create one as long as you have a .edu email address. And very similar, there are two ways we could go about it. So we could start with people if you already know a specific company you want to work with, or you could start with employers. If you're like, I know an industry, I know a location, but beyond that, I really don't know. So very similar. You can see the location filter, you can see the industry filter, there's an employer size filter. So there's a lot of playing around you could do here. Sometimes it's going to bring you very similar results to LinkedIn. Sometimes you might see some different things. So if we search, for example, in industry here, pharmaceuticals, for the example we were using before, you can then, I think we said Mississippi was the goal, so we'll put in Mississippi here. So we saw results on LinkedIn that we're not seeing on Handshake, and that's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be the other way. So that's why I encourage you maybe consider using both tools. But there are a lot of other opportunities out here. So if we get rid of Mississippi, for example, we're going to start seeing a lot more options. So it just depends on how flexible you are, which one you might start with. Now for this people tab, again, if you know an employer you're already interested in and you want to find folks who work there, then this is a good one to use. Do we have anyone that's got another dream company that we could use as an example? On Handshake would be best if it's a larger one. Goldman Sachs, good one. That's definitely a large one. So we can search for Goldman Sachs. And then it's going to show you all the people who work there, and then you can go even further and look for specific job roles. So again, this is very similar to what we were doing before. So if we search for recruiter, then we're going to see some human resources people. Some of them have worked at Goldman Sachs. Some of them are currently at Goldman Sachs. So you can click into those specific people. You can search for different job roles. You can search for different majors if you're trying to connect with people, from the same programs you have been. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. So in this case, we're seeing a lot of folks who are more recent graduates. You might decide to start from the employers tab to see all the folks who work there kind of a little bit more easier to scan. So if we go to Goldman Sachs, you can scroll down to see some people too. So there's going to be a lot of different informations, testimonial, jobs, and then we're going to get to people. So this is where you're seeing some of those higher up folks, the recruiter, if you're specifically in engineering, there's a campus recruiter, VP, program management, manager. Now, typically you're not going to reach out to the VP about something like micro-internships, but if you are in engineering, that campus recruiter could potentially be a great person to reach out to. Now, if you want to verify, because often professionals aren't on Handshake as often as they're on LinkedIn, if you want to make sure, do they still work there? We could then go back to LinkedIn. I can search for Marissa. You can see this person comes up. Is this the Marissa we're thinking about? Doesn't look like, because this one doesn't work at Goldman Sachs. So we can search more specifically. If we need to, we can also go back to that people. Here we find the right Marissa, and look at that. I have verified that they are indeed still there. So if you're really like, Goldman Sachs is the one, I want to reach out to Marissa, you could send the message here on LinkedIn, and then you could also send them a message here on Handshake saying, I reached out on LinkedIn, but I'm also reaching out here just because I wanted to provide more context. Now, I wouldn't do more ways than two, but just those two ways really emphasizes like, hey, I'm excited about this and I'm making sure I reach out. Now, this messaging is where we're going to go back to these templates because with Handshake, we've got a little bit more space to play with here. So we're going to give them some more information. So I've copied my template and I'm popping over here. And this is where you're going to just want to make sure that you customize everything. Proofread it, make sure it's good. So in this case, we're going to say, hello, Marissa. In this case, we've never met Marissa before. So we're getting rid of this first part. That's really just what you're going to use if you're following up with someone you've already met or connection at the career fair, whatever it is. I'm a junior studying engineering I'm just putting in stuff at CSU. I'm reaching out because I would love to do an engineering internship with Goldman and Sachs. But again, whatever the reason is, they don't start until summer, could be a reason. And I'm excited to get experience. as soon as possible. If you're interested in, whoop, I got rid of too much of the template. Bear with me. Sorry, this is a little bit boring, folks. Again, please bear with me for just a second. There we go. And then it goes into, I was wondering if you would consider posting a Parker Dewey micro-internship. It gives them a little bit of information. You plug in the company name again, let them know if they're interested in learning more, they can come to a webinar, or if they already have something in mind. So messaging in this way just gives you a little bit more opportunity. And you can do the inverse of what we did too. If you find someone on LinkedIn and you're like, man, I want to reach out to this person, but I've already used my 3 outreaches, you can go to people on Handshake, see if you can find them, send them a message there. I see someone asking, how often do micro-internships lead to full-time positions? Great question, and it varies a little bit depending on the intention of the company. While many companies are coming with the intention of hiring someone longer term, some companies are just using it as on-demand project support. Now, the caveat is sometimes even those companies using it as on-demand project support realize during the course of the micro internship, oh my gosh, I was just looking for help for this project, but this student is amazing. I need to have them for my internship this summer. So it happens a fair amount of the time. I don't have any hard and fast data to share. And part of the reason is oftentimes companies will use micro interns to engage students earlier. So first and second year students that might not be ready for the traditional internship, maybe they're using very straightforward micro interns to get their brand in front of you and start making connections with you early. The problem is, even though we know it happens, the folks who connect because of a micro internship in their first year don't always come back to us after they've graduated and got that full-time job offer to let us know that it originated. We're working on different ways to collect that data better so I can get you fast stats in the future, but I hope that helps explain why I don't have them quite right now. I see someone asking, will this recording be shared afterwards? Heck yeah, it will. All Parker Dewey webinars, you always get the recordings afterwards, so the recording and slides will be coming your way. So hopefully that's helpful, folks. We have talked on both Handshake and LinkedIn about how to find contacts, how to message, how to reach out. Now I know some of you may be thinking, well, hey, this is a Parker Dewey webinar. Why are we using Handshake and LinkedIn to do these things? Why can't I just reach out on Parker Dewey? And that's because the Parker Dewey platform is specifically about connecting you with those micro internship opportunities. For the networking and the outreach and the other things, we want to use these other tools like Handshake and LinkedIn. So when you get to Parker Dewey, the focus is on applying for the opportunities that are already there, which may include opportunities that are there because you reached out about them. Also want to do a quick note. If there is a company that is already using Parker Dewey, like you can see a project currently posted, you want to make sure that you keep the communication about that opportunity to your application in Parker Dewey. You don't want to do these other things we've talked about if an opportunity with that company is already there. It can kind of muddy the waters. It's not a good practice. It's also technically against Parker Dewey's guidelines. So if there's a project already posted, to ensure an equitable application process and consideration for everyone, make sure you're applying and communicating on the Parker Dewey platform until you're selected. So you've done your initial outreach. You reached out either on LinkedIn or on Handshake, and the company responded, yes. Or you reached out and they haven't responded. Boo. Either way, we have some templates to help you follow up if they haven't responded. Now, with LinkedIn, it is a little tricky because if they do not accept your request to connect, unfortunately, that's the end of the road for the LinkedIn attempt, which is why we again showed you ways to reach out on both LinkedIn and Handshake. Now, let's say they accept your request to connect, but they don't respond to your message. What do we do next? The good news is if they accepted the connection, then you can send them a follow-up message. So that's where we have one templated here, where you can thank them for accepting your invitation, give them that little bit of information that you weren't able to give them because of the constraints of the initial message, and just see if they'll take that next step. When it comes to messaging on Handshake or email, give them, maybe 1 to 2 weeks. If they haven't gotten a response within a week or so, if it's a time of year that's not crazy, you can reach out to them. If you know they're in the thick of recruiting season, or maybe you met them at the career fair and they were talking about, we've got a lot of things going on the next couple of weeks, you might want to give them just a little bit longer. But usually, if you've waited a full week, it's okay at that point to send a follow-up. So we also have a template here that you can send, whether another handshake message or another email. You could respond to the first one just to make sure that they saw your initial email, and again, reiterate that information about Parker Dewey. Now, if they don't respond to your follow-up, unfortunately, that's happened sometimes, and that's when we let it go. It's appropriate to send one week afterwards, but you don't want to keep spamming employers incessantly. Sometimes they will respond. It'll lead to the micro-internship, and that'll be great. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen 100% of the time. So we give you all the tools to reach out, but if they don't respond, you need to move on to the next person and see if it'll work with a different employer. Doesn't even necessarily need to be a different employer, could just be a different point of contact. So again, the timeline, usually if they haven't responded within a week, then it's appropriate to send a follow-up if you are able to. Now, let's say they do respond and they go, okay, I'm kind of interested in this. Where can I learn more? That's where we are your resource. Specifically, me. Hi again, I'm Danielle. So if they have questions and you don't feel like you have the answers, tell them, hey, I'd love to connect you with Danielle at Parker Dewey. She'll be happy to answer those questions for you and get you set up. One of the resources in those templates you're using is also a link to a webinar. So I think this one right here, if they click on that, we do these webinars every month for employers. In 30 minutes, we explain what micro-internships are, how they benefit them, and how to get started posting projects for you. So you can also direct them to those webinars. Either way, just don't feel like you have to have all the answers. All you have to do is let them know, I want to do a micro-internship with you. And if they have questions after that, get us involved so we can help. Oh, this webinar for students, this particular one, we do this one quarterly. So about 4 times a year, but the registration page, you may have noticed, even if we don't have one coming up quickly, you're always able to see the recording and the slides from the last session. We also have monthly FAQ webinars for the Parker Dewey platform itself. So this session is more about creating your own opportunities. We also have one we do every month that's focused on what is Parker Dewey? How does it work? Best practices for applying, all that good stuff. So those are monthly, and if you've created an account, you should get our newsletter as long as you've logged in somewhat recently, and that's going to have the dates for those every month. So you've reached out, the company's excited, they've posted a project, you're excited to apply. These are also just some quick tips. They kind of stand for applying for micro-internships in general, whether you're applying to one that you just happen to find or you're applying to one that is posted because you reached out. But first tip is do not wait. All micro-internships tend to move quickly. Most make a selection within a week or less of posting. So don't sit on it. Don't go, oh, great, they let me know it's there, I'm going to apply to that next week. No, apply as soon as you have the ability to do so. You also want to make sure you submit a quality application. So what you want to do to make sure you're ready is make sure your profile is complete, it's thoughtful, it's free from errors, and that's going to make it quicker for you when an opportunity comes along to get your application in. So again, if you need tips about how to set up your profile effectively, those FAQ webinars I mentioned might be a good resource. If it's a project that resulted from you reaching out, they let you know, hey, I posted this opportunity like you encouraged me to, go apply, then you have already made that connection with them first. In that case, it's not a violation of our terms of use for you to follow up with them and say, hey, I'm excited, I applied. In fact, in this case, it's not only not a violation, it's highly encouraged. And when you're applying for that opportunity that resulted because you reached out, don't hesitate to look at some of the others on the platform too. There might be something else that catches your eye. Again, you're welcome and encouraged to apply as many as you're excited about. So these are some of those tips for submitting a quality application. It's really just 2 pieces: the profile, which gets attached to every project you apply for, and a couple of short answer responses. So we've got resources for both. You're going to get the links to these in the follow-up. if you do want to come to that overview webinar, the next session is going to be on October 16th. So the link to that in the chat is really just Parker Dewey platform best practices. Now I see we've got some additional questions in the chat. While I'm reading these questions, please also feel free to read some of these quotes from students who were successful with micro-internships. I see a question, what if I get an employer to post a micro-internship and then someone else applies for it? This is a great question. So if we go back to that statistic from the Strata Foundation, that over 80%, I think it was 87, of internships are resulting from things like informal outreach, what we went over today, that means that there's a strong preference from employers from these candidates who are taking initiative, who are reaching out. So we can't stop other candidates from applying for the micro-internship, but what we will say is if you're the one that took the initiative, you're the one that reached out, you apply quickly after they let you know it's posted and you submit a quality application, you are almost certainly going to be the one selected for that micro-internship. I can't guarantee it hard and fast, lock in key, throw it away, but they're going to be keeping an eye out for you. All right, I think we are caught up on the chat. So hopefully you found these circle back to these success stories also helpful. If you recall, these were the students who had the challenges at the beginning that resonated with a lot of the ones we had in the poll. You know, they were struggling to figure out what they wanted to do. They were overwhelmed by options and looking for effective ways to explore. They were just trying to get that first experience so they could get the rest of their career moving. And micro-internships really help them do that. If you are inspired by hearing how other students are using micro-internships and seeing success, we also have success stories from students from all different types of majors in all different parts of the country who did projects with all different types of industries, some of which, I know we had the question earlier, how often do these lead to full-time jobs? In case it's helpful for me to highlight, Alex led to an internship, led to a full-time job. Claire led to a full-time job in an industry she'd never expected she would be in. Jessica led to a full-time job with a company she'd never heard of before she did her micro-internship. So some nice examples there. As far as next steps go, if you don't already have a Parker Dewey account, make sure you make one. There's no cost. Money ever only flows one way, and it's from us to you when you get picked and complete a micro-internship. Creating an account is going to help you make sure that your profile is ready. So when you're reaching out to these companies and they post those projects, you are ready to apply and your profile is in tip-top shape. Use the templates and the strategies we talked about today to reach out to those companies of interest. Now, when you log on, you will see that there are already opportunities on Parker Dewey. But again, if they're not aligned with your goals, take that initiative. And when those projects get posted, I can't say it enough, but move quickly, get your application in there. And if you are interested in additional Parker Dewey information, we do have a Career Launcher LinkedIn page. This has reminders about events. You can read perspectives from other successful micro interns. Just a lot of good information, so encourage you to give that a follow. And with that, we are coming to the end of our webinar. I will hang out for a little while in case there are any additional questions. But while I wait for those, just want to say thank you all so much for taking the time to spend with me today. I really hope that this was helpful. I'm excited to hear about y'all reaching out to employers, them posting projects, and you getting selected for those projects. Hopefully, I'll be writing a success story about some of you in the very near future.